Ah, hi, how are you? Welcome to Graham's Horror Tales. And per usual, it's always going to be unexpected and just, we're going to have something of a nice time, a little bit of a commentary afterwards, and just, we're going to try not to sleep tonight. Well, let's try searching for a story right now. If you have any suggestions, anything that you'd want me to look at, please, please let me know. I look at all of them, even if you think I don't. Well, hmm. Seems we can't find anything right now. Ah, never mind. I think we found something. The title is. This sounds very innocent. And with Valentine's Day around the corner, why not? I think I'm in love is the title. I think I'm in love. Like, I'm really actually head over heels in love. I'm talking capital L kind of love. The kind of love that keeps you up at night and makes your entire world stop turning. The kind of love that makes you go a little bit crazy, but in the right ways. That kind of love. I know, this is really cliche, but hear me out. I never thought anyone could love me before, but I was wrong. There's really someone out there for everyone. Maybe. Sorry, that was just me being sinister. If you've ever felt like nobody could fall in love with you, or that you weren't good enough, trust me, you're wrong. We first met at a party, and I knew right away he was the one for me. It was a busy party with lots of people, loud music, but when we locked eyes with each other, it was like nobody else in the room mattered. My friend introduced us and we hit it off immediately. I remember feeling terribly nervous talking to him for the first time. He was so calm and cool, and I was afraid I would screw it all up. I thought he might think I was weird or awkward, but he didn't seem to care. I kept thinking that he would get bored of me and move on to some other prettier girl, but to my amazement, he seemed to really like me. Maybe it was just the beer talking, or maybe I was a little smitten, but everything he said seemed completely hilarious. For the moment he set his drink down next to me, I don't think I stopped laughing the entire night. On more than one occasion, I had to stop myself from blushing, and when he touched my hand, well, I think someone brought a mop because I think I melted all over the floor. Have you ever been so attracted to somebody that you couldn't think of a single word to say back to them? Like, all you want to do is just say something incredibly smooth or clever or anything at all, but nothing comes out. Oh, yeah, I've been there plenty of times. When he asked for my number, I didn't know what to say. My brain had completely short circuited and I felt like an absolute dodo. Luckily, he took the phone out of my hand and texted himself with it so I wouldn't have to. My knight in shining armor. Oh, yeah? And still, despite all of my shortcomings, all of my quirks, awkwardness, the spark was still there. We both felt it. Ah, so this is what love feels like. I love everything about him, from his wavy hair, the black coloring, the curls over his forehead, and his eyes were so blue. I love the patches of hair on his chest. Not too much, not too little, but just the right amount. I love how strong his shoulders are and how safe they made me feel. But the biggest and best thing that I loved about all of it is I love how warm his skin feels when I wore it. Well, that awfully got dark. This sounds like some Joe Goldberg shit from fucking You on Netflix. Uh, let's try to find another story. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's come over here to the no sleep category. I want something that's like a psychological thriller, something like that last story that we just read, where she ended up skinning the poor guy and wore him. Now this is something that actually scares me down to my fucking core. Take a listen. If you can see this, it is very important that you keep reading. This is Colonel Jacob Wayne of the United States Air Force. If you're reading this, it's very important that you keep reading this until the very end. It should take 3 to 5 minutes. It is very, extremely important that you read and follow the instructions provided. Humor me if you must, but please don't look away until you finish reading. And try to stay calm. Any increase in your stress levels will draw their attention. Ergo, I won't go into detail as to how you got where you are. How you got here is not important, as it is of you getting out. Believe me when I say we are working on that right now. The best way to help yourself is to keep reading. Don't scan ahead. Don't read out loud. Just read. Oh no, guys, I think I'm actually fucked. Severely. But you know what they say, take one for the team, am I right? Right now, you're probably thinking back on a few days and nothing felt out of the ordinary. You went about your regular activities with nothing usual to report. That's because they are so good, so most people don't realize they are in a simulation. Oh shit. Even as our code works deeper into the program, they are monitoring you. So please remain calm. It was tricky, but we found a way to communicate directly to you. We had to embed this into your daily routine so it didn't draw their attention. You're probably reading this on some social media website. Might even be an email forward or a book. We don't know. We can't control how the message gets to you. We only know that you're receiving it. Subliminally, as your eyes are passing over these words, a code is being uploaded into your brain. Think of it as a virus or an antivirus. Your brain is an organic matter and they exploited that. They hacked right into your subconscious mind and overrode it with their own code. That's how they got in. And that's why everything appears normal. You might think you're about to go back to your daily life, but in reality you're strapped to a table with tubes sticking out of your body. Well, honestly, being here and enjoying this with you is a lot better than thinking about tubes sticking out of my body, wherever those tubes are. Now that the code is uploading, you may begin to feel some sensations. For example, one ear might feel slightly warmer than the other. It might be the headset that I'm wearing, who knows. You might even feel an itch or a tickle. Don't scratch. Let it be. Ignore the dull background hum you might hear as well. That's their program. If they catch on before our code has to work, they will abort the simulation. And if that happens, you're lost to us forever. Oh, and don't be alarmed. They realize we are in a system. You may notice some small changes, specifically a slight shortness of breath, or that you have to control your breathing manually. Ah, fuck you for reminding me of that. We know from other communication attempts that whenever they discover a code break-in, the first system they power down is the one controlling your breathing. Thankfully, even in a simulation, you're able to breathe normally or manually. Breathe in, breathe out, inhale, exhale. I'm sorry for anyone hearing this if I made them breathe manually. Awesome. You're doing just fine. You probably figured out that there's a glitch, but if our code is working, we've disabled their ability to do a hard reboot. Because of this, they will try other means to disrupt the upload. It is very important that you ignore anything that might draw your attention from these words. If they pull you away before the upload completes, it will delete our code. Block them out. Ignore the movements you see in your peripheral vision. Those sounds you hear, the voices, they're not family, friends, or coworkers. They may even be your pets, but they know your weaknesses. Overlook the notifications popping up on your screen if you're on a phone or computer. Block them all out until you're done reading. It's just another way they're trying to break our communication link. Evidently, if our code is working, the next thing you'll notice is an overwhelming urge to swallow. You won't realize it, but there's a feeding tube down your throat. You'll only know it's there because your tongue won't feel comfortably in your mouth. Oh geez. You might also become aware of some of the saliva being produced. Don't overact. If you have to swallow, just swallow. It's only weird if you make it weird. Wow, if you're still reading this, you're about 90% complete. You're doing great, but you're really going to need to focus now. Once the upload is complete, there will be instructions you will need to follow. That is if you follow the instructions and then look away. To exit the simulation. Complicating matters is the fact that they know we're here, and they know what they're doing. Their attempts to divert your attention through the simulation is unsuccessful, so now they're going to use your body system against you. They are in your brain. They want you to blink? Don't blink. Your life depends on keeping your eyes completely open. Just a few more paragraphs until the code is done and complete. Don't scan down or up, just keep reading. I got you this far, so stay with me. Eyes open, eyes front, keep them locked on the screen. Well, this is a very good way to keep me focused on it. Don't falter. Please focus. I don't want to lose you. I've lost so many already. Ignore it, block it out. Ignore that tickle on your scalp and that itch on your arm. That's ironic that he knew that my arm was tickling. Now, they're going to do a manual override. Don't give it up. You made it this far. Fight it. You're almost there. Follow the instructions below and we can get you out. Embedded in this text are the steps you need to follow to unplug from the simulation. If we did this correctly, the first letter of each paragraph will tell you what you need to do. Don't look yet. The upload still needs to finish. I hope you didn't look. Upload complete. We've done everything we can on your end. They got us good. First letter of each paragraph is, there is no way to escape us. Well, whether that's real or not, at least give me a damn cheesecake. Let's find the next story because that was depressing. Well, that one actually scared me a little bit, so. Until I get a cheesecake from them. Ah, let's check this one out. Trying to read it and see. Trying to find something interesting is just. Huh. Ah, horrifying. Take a listen, take a gander. The homeless in my neighborhood don't just want change. Sinister indeed. What would they want? 2 whole years ago, my wife and I, Angie, decided it was time to buy a house. We knew it was anything but a buyer's market, but we were sick of paying triple what a mortgage would be in rent every month. I'm sure this story is familiar to some of you, and we went through every stage of disbelief, anger, and finally apathy after every competitive offer we put together was blown out of the water by a multinational investment corporation. I'm not mad about the process anymore, although it left me questioning where society was heading. How is this bloody legal? I went to school, paid off my debt, got a good job. I did everything right to still get priced out of the fucking city I grew up in. But perhaps some anger remains. After setting our sights on the city's less desirable neighborhoods, we finally got our home. June 1st, we moved into a 4,500 square foot colonial. It had hardwood floors that patented like leather, and a frosted plaster trim gave the ceilings the look of a wedding cake. The basement was a different story. It wasn't just unfinished. It was a dank hole in the ground, and scribbled on the walls were strange spirals and crude faces. Kids, said the realtor, like she knew how that they would draw the markings. Fixing up the basement would be quite the value builder. So sure, the kitchen had composite counters, and the basement needed a sign above the entrance that read, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." But we had a home, I said, and a damn big one at that. The catch was that it was a stone's throw from the freeway, and that the area was known for its crime more than anything else. Angie said at least it was a stepping stone. We'd bank a year's worth of mortgage, hope the housing market keeps rocketing, and move again in a year. There were some flaws in our plan, mainly money, but I didn't say anything. I figured we both adjust to how we would like it. The first few weeks went smooth, and me and the wife got to unpacking and introduce ourselves to the neighbors. Maybe it was the threat of crime that there was some comfort and purpose in knowing who you loved too. But whatever it was, our neighbors were incredibly friendly. We felt at home, and while there was shocks, we made games out of them to take the fear away. With the pops that permeate the night, we had the game where we guessed whether the sound was fireworks or gunshots. When we passed large turds, one of us would point, and we played human or dog. What the actual fuck? You know what? If this works for this couple and keeps them going strong and shit, why not? I'm not gonna be sitting there and looking at shit and going, it was a human or dog. I'm just gonna go, oh, that's shit. Unfortunately, after just a couple of weeks, we became experts at many of these games. Gunshots carry the sharp crack of the sound barrier being broken while fireworks go boom or pop. As for the dog shit, I mean for the shit, well, they were just landmines. There was a homeless problem there for sure, but they minded their own business. Neighbors seemed to see right through them. They'd act as if they were ghosts, like they weren't even there. Everyone did that. I'd smile and say hello at the bare minimum, because they are human beings after all. One night, after a movie, I was at the sink washing the popcorn ball. The window above looks out to the backyard, which is heavily wooded for a city lot. When it was dark out, I could only see a sliver of what was outside beyond the reflection of myself in the glass. I frowned at the shadow of a tall, dark stump. I don't remember a tree there. I swayed on my feet to see past my reflection, but in the bushes, nearly out of sight, a man was standing still, staring at me, and I dropped the bowl where it crashed into the sink. "You okay in there, honey?" Angie shouted from the living room. "Yeah," I said, with a distinctive worry in my tone. I kept my eyes on the man and said nothing to Angie to not warn her. I said, "I'm going to take the trash out." "Okay." In my opinion, walking out to go take the trash out was one of the dumbest mistakes you could have done if there's a man just staring back at you. But hey, to each their own. I walked by the trash without touching it and opened the back door. "Hello?" I said. Outside, the wind was blowing hard, and the branches of the buckthorn the man stood behind were waving wildly as if to warn me. "What do you want?" I said. I stepped forward to try and show I wasn't scared, but it was the tepid step of prey, like I was better planting my weight to run. The man said nothing. I took another step forward, more confidently this time, but jumped when my movement activated the motion light. I composed myself and yelled, "This is private property. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." Now this was the emptiest of threats, and everybody in the neighborhood knew it. The cops made a point to show up an hour late, if at all. The man walked forward a few paces to where I could see him better. A very tall man wearing a heavy wool overcoat that stretched all the way to his ankles. He kept walking towards me, and my brain was shouting, but I froze in fear. "What do you want?" He stepped just in front of me. A white scar stared across his black skin just below the chin. He was at least 6'6", but the coat that ran the entire body of him made him look gigantic. His face was recently shaven and gaunt. He held out his fists at arm's length, and when he uncurled his fingers, cupped in his enormous palm was a pill. "I don't have any drugs," I said. His face didn't change any. There was no want or question in his eyes. "You want me to take it?" I pointed at his hand. I reached out and gently plucked the pill from his palm. I held it in between my forefinger and thumb. It was just a pill capsule. Whatever had been inside had been completely emptied. "What do you want?" I asked again. He opened his mouth, revealing the severed stump of a tongue, and then widened the enormous whites of his eyes. He began to mouth something, but being tongueless, I couldn't tell what it was. But my blood cooled because I felt it was a certain type of curse. "Please," I murmured. "Please leave." He turned and stepped into the night, and I watched the bushes sway in his wake as if he were a giant parting his way through the woods. The next day was Saturday, and I was determined to find out if anyone knew about this tall man. I went to the strip mall and asked some of the homeless in the area, but as soon as I began to describe him, they all looked at the ground and shook their heads. Alrighty, sorry for that. There was my headset likes to unplug at the most inconvenient of times. Sorry for breaking your immersion, but back to where we were. The pattern was repeated with every other homeless person I tried to talk to. On the way home, I stopped by two men working in the car at the end of the driveway. Hey, I started over to them. This may sound a little crazy, but do you know of a tall fellow around here that wears a giant coat? They both started laughing. Sorry to waste your time, I said. I turned to go. No, one of them was waving me back. You talking about a really big motherfucker? The man raised his hand to signify. Yay, hey, black coat, nasty scars? Yeah, I nodded. Well, that's Tall Frank. What you want about him? You see him in your recycling? No, why? Tall Frank's a can man. He makes his living that way. I nodded. He was acting weird in my backyard last night. Weird how? Was he just looking like his weird self? No. He was staring at me from outside. When I went out, he tried to say something or mouth something. Both of their brows rose. You saying that Tall Frank tried to communicate with you? Yeah. They both looked at each other. Tall Frank talks to nobody. And by talks, I mean communicating in any kind of way. He cut his throat to never talk again. That's just a rumor, at least. Tall Frank showed up in this neighborhood 20 years ago. No one knows where he came from, and the man can't tell you. Well, oh well, oh well. But I never see no dog that'll slice your tongue out. Some say it was a dog that bit him. Nobody knows. If he doesn't communicate with anyone, I said, how come he got the name of Tall Frank? Well, that's what my mama would call him. He leaned close to me. She used to tell me to watch myself and my tongue, or Tall Frank will take it. He chuckled to himself. What do you think he wanted with me? They both shrugged. No clue, but you better be sure to tell us when you find out. They bent back to their work, and I thanked them, and I just went on far less assured than when I first set out. The next several days went by with no sign of Tall Frank, and I began to feel ill. It was a headache at first, but soon I had heart palpitations and body aches that almost let me go into the emergency room. I assured myself that there was no such thing as curses. Why was I letting one strange encounter with a homeless man dominate my every thought? Angie was working late recently, and when I had the house to myself, I was staying at the kitchen window and staring to the backyard. I was obsessed, and it wasn't long before I saw him again. I was wrapped in a blanket, filling the teapot at the sink, when I saw him standing in the same place as before. I dropped the pot and ran to the back door. Hey! My head felt light, and I was in the same kind of drunken state where your fear hardly speaks to you. I scampered through the backyard over to him. What do you want with me? Tall Frank was staring at me. He gestured with his scarred neck for me to follow. I looked down at my bare feet, but he was already walking. Hey, just leave us alone. I stepped cautiously after him. When I got past the bushes where I could see the alley, I saw him standing near the trash cans. I ran after him. This guy's dumb as hell. Whatever comes is pretty much of his own volition and shit, so let's see how it plays out. I don't ever want to see you back here again. With our difference in size and a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, I'm sure I looked to him like some angry hobbit. He certainly didn't act intimidated. I can't blame him. Tall Frank crossed the alley and sat on the crumbling retaining wall. He gently tapped a stone next to him for me to sit. I'm not fucking sitting. He reached into his breast pocket and paused before pulling out an envelope. Then he put the letter in his other hand and reached in and pulled out the another. What are those? He extended the envelopes towards me. His long arms stretched nearly towards the alley. I approached the letters cautiously, snatching them and stepping back. What are these? I muttered, almost distracted. They had been open already, and I took the papers out of one of them. It was a handwritten letter on a college ruled paper. All the ink was smeared like it had been dunked in water, but I could still read it, and albeit slowly. When I was done reading, I left my arm fall down to my side and stared at tall Frank in disbelief. Angie had a lover. Oh boy. I looked at the other envelope and hardly had to read it to figure it out. The letterhead read Atlantic Life Insurance. A policy had been opened in my name for $250,000. I stumbled over to the retaining wall and sat. The pills, I thought. I thought about the empty pill he showed me that I tossed aside. It was my emergency albuterol. It had to be. A quick WebMD search showed that an overdose started with symptoms of headaches and heart palpitations. Is Angie trying to kill me? Oh shit. Suddenly I realized tall Frank's arms were around me and he was patting me on my shoulder paternally. We sat there in silence for a long time. The things you can learn from people's recycling, I said. Tall Frank nodded and we watched the upstairs light turn on and my wife appeared in the window. She twisted something in her fingers and then tapped it into a mug. A minute later I heard the back door open. Honey, are you out here? I made you some tea. I guess the homeless around here don't always want change. Sometimes they just might want to save your life. If I were him, I'm divorcing Angie, calling the police and some other shit. And on top of that, I'm moving tall Frank in. What an asshole of a wife. Tall Frank's a fucking legend. Wow. Well, I don't believe murdering her is the way to go about it, but there's some fates worse than death. Well, Jesus, that got hella weird. Maybe we can find another story or just... I don't know, that one got me feeling weird. That one got me feeling really weird. Ooh. All right. I think on that note, that actually weirded me out to my core. I'm going to head out for the night and just hopefully any and everything that I told you does not happen to you. These things are things. These things go up and they bang, but hang around. Things get better if they do. And if they don't, well, only you can do something about it, believe it or not. But if it makes any sense, I like to believe that you're pretty capable. You're still here after all. Please take care.